Hi, I'm Jessica Ardeal with Lynn Misch. Welcome to Own Your Healthcare. This is a conversation for you. And the question you might be asking is, why would I want to share my own personal health information with complete strangers or think about joining the masterclass that we'll be engaging in and being open about what you might be going through? Healthcare is personal and private, and we keep a lot of things as such, right? And so even with the HIPAA regulations and the privacy and the different ways that are there to protect you from and keeping you safe. And so what we want to do is know that you are entering a safe space here, and anything that you are going through, whether you ever share it with us or not, we're here to support you. You're not alone. And I think we all know story is a powerful way to connect. And Lynn, you have a really powerful story. And I'd love to invite you to share your journey, if you could please, and take us on your own evolution through healthcare consciousness.
And I'm delighted to share. The other thing I want to say is that this is not a replacement for a healthcare provider and for your doctor. This is medical advice on some level, but not advice that's going to replace treatment or care. And so there are different facets to, I think, the way education comes out and how we all experience our own existence, our own lives. And so Jess and I were sharing, and hi Jess, I mean, I'm glad to see you. We were sharing about, I think it is a very personal thing. Health is a very personal thing, and oftentimes I've worked with a lot of patients over the years. And so there's a very delicate space that you get into when you're with other people. So sharing my story, I found, has been very helpful for other women, because I'm a breast cancer. I like to say thriver rather than survivor. And so back in 2006, in fact, it started in 2005 at the end in December. I was out sledding with my kids. And I went screaming down a hill on a little saucer and slammed into a woman and her daughter by accident. They were sitting at the bottom of the hill, and I was sideways, and I hit them and took out my right knee. And it was interesting because I looked at the two ladies and I said, "Are you okay?" And they said, "Yes, we're okay." And they said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." Got up and I hobbled back to my car. And the good nurse that I am, I took the snow and put an ice bag on my knee. And then I had some Advil in the car, took some Advil and waited for my kids to come back and get in the car. And eventually ended up, and I was teaching at the time, ended up having to have arthroscopic surgery on my right knee. So during that process, that was in December, I scheduled that for the end of December to have that surgery. And on New Year's Day, actually, it was interesting. I was in the shower, and this is now 2006. It was New Year's Day. I'm taking a shower, and I decided to do a self breast exam for whatever reason. And I was doing a self breast exam, and I found a lump in my left breast. And I was a little in shock when I found it, and surprised. I hadn't found anything prior. I had been doing self breast exams routinely monthly. And so I did this exam, and there was about a 2 centimeter lump in my left breast. And so the next day on January the 2nd, I called my provider and went in and had a series of tests done. And I was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma. And so I went through treatment and had that actual tumor removed. And the whole process of like going through and being in the hands of providers and having a biopsy done and waiting for that diagnosis and waiting for the outcomes of that was terrifying. I can remember I'd done yoga for years, and I was waiting for the diagnosis, for the actual results of what they found in the biopsy. And I was doing yoga on in my living room, and, to a tape. And, I got the phone call, and, it was an interesting experience because I have a real difficult time reconnecting to yoga now. I do yoga in different ways, but I don't do the yoga like I did before. And I think there's probably a connection to that fear related to that actual phone call with the diagnosis. So then I went through a series of having surgery. I had a lumpectomy. I had uh, uh, grade 2, stage 1, grade 2 ductal carcinoma in situ, which was a relatively good diagnosis to have. It was ER positive, PR positive, HER2 negative, and we can get into all that, but I'm not going to do that right now as far as understanding what that all is. But what it is what happens is when you diagnose an actual tumor, especially with a breast tumor, you want to, or any kind of cancer tumor. I worked with cancer patients for about 6 years as an NP. But what happens is that you have to find out what is making that cancerous tumor. And so they identify the hormones that are feeding that tumor. And then from that point, then they determine a way that they're going to treat you. And so I actually had a lumpectomy, had a section of my breast removed, and then went through 36, I think it was about 36, 38 treatments of radiation, 5 days a week. And I was teaching at the time, so I'd go down at lunchtime and get a radiation treatment. And they fitted me and did all kinds of things for that exact beam to go in and get radiation. And then I had the treatment, and then I went on a hormone blockade, which is a treatment for 5 years. That what they identified, it was estrogen positive and progesterone positive, and so they give you a medication that blockades that estrogen from feeding that tumor that may be present in your body. So it was a very scary time for me. You look at your own mortality, you look at your family, you look at all the different aspects of living. And it was an interesting experience to have because I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about how I look at each day. So in many respects, and even my medical oncologist at the time, when he asked me about it, he said he didn't ask me until later about my feelings about how I felt about having breast cancer. And I said, it was funny because I even went through a lot of emotional experiences. I went through a divorce at that point in time. I was raising kids on my own. And so there was a lot of different emotional things that happened during that period. But I actually can remember telling him I was very grateful for the experience because it really helped me to grow as a person. The other thing that I did a lot is that everybody tells you that you need to rest, when you're going through treatments. And after I'd get home from work, I'd hop on my bike and I'd go for a bike ride. And I found that it really increased my energy levels rather than not having that. And I really was careful about what I was eating and that type of thing. But I think the more important aspect of this is that all the emotional pieces that are a part of this journey that you go on. And so many women experience this. And then years later, in 2013, I always say I was called to service. And I got called to work at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. And I had the opportunity of working with one of the leading breast oncologists in the country. And so we worked with breast cancer patients. And so it was a really eye-opening experience for me, but it was also, I love my patients, and women are pretty amazing, and they're amazingly resilient, and saw them in all different stages of having the disease process and what they were going through. And so it was quite a remarkable gift for me to be able to have that experience and working with others. And oftentimes what I found is I shared my story with other women because I think it helped them understand that I did understand some of what they were going through when they were in process with this. And so there's so many different aspects to being treated and what emotionally your what is happening to you. And the fear that becomes a part of your existence, the whole, even just the whole treatment aspect of women that losing their hair because they're going to go through treatment, have chemotherapy, those kinds of things. I mean, I literally saw women get up and walk out the door and not be treated because they didn't want to lose their hair. So there's so many different things that are involved in the reality of a diagnosis that you get in the course of being a human being, and and how you negotiate through that, how you travel through that. And a lot of times, it's just I think it's finding your own courage.
I was
You
going
know,
to ask you that in this topic of owning your healthcare, in that process, did you feel any ownership, or did you feel, was there any connection to that, or did you feel like you were just going through the motions and the process and doing what you were told to do?
No, I very much so charted my own course, which was really interesting because for whatever reason, that's when I really not only went the traditional route in allopathic medicine, but I went down a very integrative route and met actually Suzanne, Dr. Suzanne Lazowskis, and I went and really started to look at and she really opened my eyes as far as where my body was at. And for whatever reason, I contacted a friend of mine who's a nutritionist and a pharmacist. And I said to her, if this were you, what would you do? And she gave me Suzanne's name, Dr. Lazowskis, Dr. Suzanne's name, Lazowskis' name. And I went to see her and really learned about, I call it energetic medicine, but learned about nutrition, learned about different aspects of the body. So I really went down and met you, Jess, at that point in time. And really went down an integrated pathway and did both. And so whatever inspiration came to me in that process, no, I did take ownership. And it was interesting because Dr. Suzanne gave me the research from Germany when I was going through this originally. And I was looking at, she gave me the research, I read the research, and it enlisted a process called oncotype testing. And what oncotype testing does is it looks at tumor recurrence, the possibility of, and it rates that tumor. So I actually asked my medical oncologist, and at that point in time, they weren't doing this routinely. Now they do it all the time. But they test the tumors routinely to see where the possibility of recurrence will be for that tumor potentially coming back. And I asked specifically to have that test done. And it was interesting because I really had to fight with the insurance company because they said it was experimental. But I did it because I wanted to do it for not only myself to figure out part of what was happening, but for other women, because I felt it was really important that other women have a connection to understanding that they need to understand and be educated about what they're doing, but they have to have help in understanding what the treatment is and the importance of how they're being treated. One of the things that I really liked about working at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America and many of your different oncology centers today is that they do an integrative approach. They find that patients do far better with nutrition and with acupuncture and with massage and with Reiki and different things with that spiritual support that I think is really a critical element in how our bodies interact, because we're more than just our body. There's a spiritual component to us, whatever the belief system is, because not everybody has that. But I think that whole process, the psychological support, the spiritual support, the emotional support, is truly a essential element in healing. And that's what you're doing, is you're healing on all different levels. And so, however that the person gets involved in that. I'm a person that when my dear friend said to me when I got the diagnosis, she said, the first thing I found you doing was you were out in the big backyard digging in the dirt with my garden. And I wanted to connect to Mother Earth. I felt that that was really important for me. And so, we all have different ways that we view the world and find the ingredients to our own health. But I think that in part of doing this own your own health topic is to really, I think, help others understand, not only sharing the stories to help find the way, but to really, it's a community. And I think sometimes in community, we find different answers and solutions. And I don't want to be told what to do a lot of times. I want to be able to make the choice about my own health care. And I got a second opinion with, especially when I went through radiation, I certainly went because it terrified me. And I can remember when they measured me, I was on the table when they were putting me through the scans, and I was in tears because I was just terrified of what was coming, because I knew that, there was a risk involved with being treated and that type of thing. So it's interesting when you engage in something that I think it's an opportunity to learn. And so I think part of this class hopefully will help the people that are involved understand and learn and grow with help from another person, perhaps. And you're absolutely right, Jess, about HIPAA and privacy, and it's hard to disclose things sometimes. Being a nurse, I've always said one of the most interesting things about being a nurse is that you're in these intimate spaces with people and people trust you. And I think that that's such a great gift that people give to you in those personal spaces as a provider. And I really like getting people's stories because it helps me understand who they are. So it helps me offer different opportunities, as I think we're trying to do with this, give people opportunities to make choices about what's important for them in deciding what process they're going to take, no matter where you are. You could be,
Too,
yeah.
like that connection that you're not alone no matter what you're going through. And there was a couple of things you mentioned I made note of, Lynn, just acknowledging too how much in the last 20 years the medical options have become integrative, right? Like it's no longer some new age wackiness. There is merit and how our body mind responds to different things other than traditional mindset approach, right? And so that integrative piece that you personally went through there and bringing that now to students you're teaching and to the patients that you work with, and even in your own continued healthcare, right? Like we're never done. You can't go to the gym, work out once and that's it. So every day is a integrative process. And the other piece you mentioned that I think is huge is having a choice, right? Especially right now, women in healthcare, we are at a place where we need to exercise the freedom to have choice, right? So there's so much there to unpack and unfold. And I hope you'll join us for the Own Your Healthcare Masterclass. Those details are coming up there for you. And Lynn, I really appreciate you sharing part of your journey and story there. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we go?
No, I'm just excited to be able to do this. I'm excited to be able to maybe offer different options, different thoughts, to provoke interest, to help others find that there are choices in how they can make a difference in their own lives.
And in their own community with what you already have in your circle of healthcare professionals. This is just to invoke your own curiosity and imagination of what else can you create for yourself. Like ultimately you're in charge of you, and with more choices we have more options to do that, as I've said before. But Lynn, I didn't mean to interrupt. I get enthusiastic sometimes.
No, that's great, because I love your enthusiasm. And the other thing that I think you have to have in all of this is a sense of humor. You got to be able to smile and laugh, and sometimes these topics become very serious. And I think that, lightening that load is really important, and having a sense of humor is essential in living this life, because you got to laugh, right? You got to laugh, you got to cry, you got to do whatever, but having a sense of humor and really being bright about it, your enthusiasm and your brightness and lightness is an essential ingredient in how this is going to move forward. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of one thing I mentioned in our prior conversations where I said, well, what else am I going to do? And it stood out to me, like, why did I say that? And I was just thinking about the way to feel like there's something I can contribute to, right? There's so much that you can feel powerless to in the world. So to be able to take ownership of how you're taking care of yourself is a powerful place to be, and to own that power and have that expand throughout the community, your home, society. Let's all take a stand here for owning our healthcare, our bodies, and the options that we have available that works for us, and individualize that and have fun with it. Like, what else if not having fun with it? Education and entertainment. Let's bring the two together. We'll see you at the master class, and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you find yourself.
Yeah. Lighten your load and see you soon.
Bye for now.